Hello, this is Jake's Stuff. I'm Bob Jakes, and today's video is about me making a Hackintosh computer, uh, kind of by accident, but I made one, and I'm going to talk about how I made it, generally speaking, and why I made it, and why there is Hackintoshes. Um, First, what is a Hackintosh? Just to go over that, a Hackintosh is a PC computer or PC computer parts put together, and the Mac OS operating system installed on it, where you're not really supposed to do that. You're not really supposed to install the Mac OS on anything but a Mac. And I have dabbled in that over the years. I've dabbled in Macintoshes, or trying to get. Well, I've owned Macintoshes over the years. I've owned many Macintoshes, mostly worked with them in my day job. So I like them. I like having the choice. I use them for certain things, and well, those certain things are mostly for audio recording and editing. I have done over the years. I liked it better. I liked the Mac OS better, specifically Pro Tools. I had Pro Tools software, and I'm currently running that now on Windows. And just to go into a little bit, I retired from my other job, and moved to Germany. So we didn't bring a lot with us. So a lot of the computers that I had, and I stopped working where I work. Like I said, retired from the school I worked in, and I had to give, like, I used computers at home, so I brought those back, and then actually those were actually sent off for recycling, just because they were like older generations or whatever. Just explaining that. I don't have use of them anymore. I move over to Germany, and I miss having a Mac. My wife has a Mac. She's got lots of Apple stuff, iPads, and iPhones, and Mac laptop and stuff like that. But I don't have anything like that. So, and I miss a Macintosh. So my plan was, like I said earlier, my plan was, I have a computer that I built of parts that were technology that was like 7-8 years old, and I was gonna make a nice, quiet little Macintosh Hackintosh computer. And what I ended up making was what you see in the background here. This is it, and what it shows here. It's an iMac Pro. It isn't an iMac Pro. That's what you have to say what it is. You have to tell it what it is, so it identifies with the hardware. More on that later. But yeah, so I made this, and I had trouble getting, when I was doing my Hackintoshing, I had trouble getting it to work on this hardware that I wanted it to work on. And I had this other computer. I have this like secondary computer with like last year's or last couple of years technology. It's a little bit older, but I mean, this hardware is still really good. It's actually an AMD Ryzen processor, and it's got 32. It shows whatever it shows here, the RAM, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and it's got a Radeon Vega 64 in it. So I'm like, I didn't want to use that computer, this computer, you see, because it's a little loud, it's a little warm. You know what I mean? The fans to keep the video card cool, the Vega cool. So it was not my first choice, but I had seen more videos on YouTube about creating a Hackintosh with an AMD Ryzen CPU. Macintoshes don't come with AMD CPUs in them, so there's some trickery involved in getting this Hackintosh made with an AMD. But here's the deal. I went from wanting a quiet computer, lower powered computer, and actually I was trying to, my intent was to copy the hardware of the Mac Pro, the trash can Mac Pro from 7-8 years ago, which that's as powerful as I needed it to be, and I'll get into the specifics of that. But what I ended up with is this Macintosh, this Hackintosh, this fake Mac, is about as powerful as the new Mac Pro, the big, the new cheese grater one, the big one that sells for $6,000. Now this computer is, well, it shows it's an 8-core processor at 3.7 gigahertz. It's an AM, like I said, I told you what it was, and with that Radeon Vega 64, it's as powerful as. And now, is it more? I think it's more powerful, but I'm just being vague here about it, just because it's as powerful as the base Mac Pro, the new one, because that's what it's got, a Radeon 580. The bottom line is, this is a very powerful Macintosh. A little bit more powerful than I needed it to be, but yeah. So the hardware that I originally wanted to use, I found a motherboard that you can put a Xeon processor on, an Intel Xeon. I love Intel Xeons because they're obviously more powerful than a regular Intel processor, given whatever category they are. Yeah, so I got this motherboard called Jingsha X79 chip. Now, if you don't know what they are, obviously an Asian motherboard. What they did was they took old server boards, motherboards, and then they took the chips off those, the chipsets off those, and then they reused them, repurposed them, and they put them on these little motherboards that you can put an Intel, or I think you can put an i7 on them of whatever version, older version of them. But so I have Intel Xeon chips, the same chip that they use in the trash can Mac Pro from 7 years ago, and I thought that this would approximate what is on that Mac Pro. So that's what I wanted to use, and hopefully, as I'm editing this in post-production, I'm showing you pictures of the Mac Pro, the Mac, whatever versions of the hardware, and the Mac Pros and stuff like that. Okay, so yeah, that is my discussion of the original intent. Like I said, and then I decided I wanted to put, it wasn't working out to try to get it to install on the Mac OS, install on that hardware. So I just said, well, let me try this computer. So that's more or less the why, and it worked great. It worked much better because I followed more, and the hardware was more specific to what those tutorials are. They didn't really have many tutorials on how to do this for that specific hardware. Now, for this Ryzen AMD, motherboard slash video card that I have. The motherboard it's a an ASRock 450 chipset, the kind of standard, bog standard a year ago. Anyway, so on to tutorials. If I can talk about tutorials for a minute, a lot of great ones, specifically ones that I followed to learn how to do this, and I'll put the names up, and you can find them if you don't know. If you can find them on YouTube. One that I followed very closely was the Tech Tuner Life. That guy, Technoli. I watched videos of his and Morgonaut. She's very, very knowledgeable, very good tutorials. But I ended up following Tech Tuner Life, a specific tutorial on that. Anyway, so those are the tutorials I used for this, and I ended up following, exactly to the letter, a tutorial from Tech Tuner Life, and that's how I was able to install this on here. It's not done. I haven't created any sort of bootloader thing. I booted up from the USB drive, but I mean, now as far as using a Hackintosh, you're using software, Macintosh, Apple OS. They don't want you using their operating system on anything except Macintosh hardware. So that's why you have people circumventing that. Now, the legality of it, if we talk for a second about that, obviously it's not designed to do this, to be installed like this, just on a Mac. My personal opinion is I can do whatever I want. I am in no way condoning pirated software or anything like that. Now there are different aspects of this that this is a post-production comment. This might possibly be the first one. It's the first one I thought of making. This is after I recorded and I started editing it. I think of these points I want to make. I know even more of them. These points I want to make, or maybe just to pre-explain something. Because for this first one, I'm assuming it's going to be the first one, I start talking about piracy and the fact that I'm talking about putting Mac OS on a computer that is not a Mac. And Apple doesn't like that. Apple doesn't want you to do that. And I discussed this, but in my opinion, that I will go into, I'll let it speak for itself. That I think that's the difference. I have owned Apple and Mac stuff, and I do not see a problem with putting the Mac OS on a computer, because I don't agree with the fact, whether I agree with it or not has nothing to do with the fact whether it is still right or wrong. My opinion is it is my computer. I'll put what I want on it. I probably most likely am saying this further down the line, but there's the difference there. I will say I don't like piracy. And obviously, if there's a piece of software that you are acquiring through file sharing, I think that's wrong. The reason why is okay. So if you're using a computer for content creation, and say you want Premiere Pro, and so you're going to go find it and get a cracked copy of it, if it says Premiere Pro sucks, but I'm gonna take it and install it, a cracked version of it. Um, you don't need to do that, especially nowadays, because well, I recorded the video for this on OBS with my cheap little webcam thing, and I edited it on recorded on OBS, and I edited in DaVinci Resolve. Free, really good programs. And I've talked in my other videos. I talked about OBS, the fact that you can do all this, with cameras, multiple layers, and stuff like that. And you can also stream from other computers using NDI over the network, the NDI plugin into OBS. NDI being its whole other thing there. And I know this is turning into a long explanation comment, but sorry, this is my dime, as we say. Which is amazing. NDI is amazing. Over a network, you can stream video for free. So as far as video editing goes and audio editing, well, there isn't much reason nowadays to pirate software. I bought Pro Tools because that's always been the standard. That's people choose their own. They'll have Logic, and I have owned Pro Tools and bought it since I used it in Pro Tools 6, and I bought Pro Tools 7 to have it. It's like I said, it's the industry standard, and you need to know it. Even if you don't use it, you need to know of it, and then do your own software. And people will probably disagree with that, but that's my opinion. Like I said, and that's as far as video and audio goes. As far as audio, you don't have to own Pro Tools. There is Reaper, the program Reaper. I bought it, was it $60, and it's a Pro Tools for $60 with a lot more plugins and stuff like that. And whether or not it's better, that's for you to decide. I liked it. I used it. There's Harrison Mixbus as far as audio goes. What did I pay for that? It's not a disabled version, but it's a very interesting sounding audio editor, mixer, whatever. Just some examples. Now I understand, there's still piracy for games. People want that game, so they pirate them. I guess you're going to do that. I don't really understand why you spend a few $1,000s on a computer and then you won't pay for a game. You can't afford to pay for a game, but you got $2,000 gaming computer. That's a whole other talk show. But this is as far as these are my comments about piracy, and you'll see me talk about them more. This isn't necessarily a discussion on all of that, and everybody has their own opinions. If anybody is actually watching this video, I'm not here to try to get I'm not. The reason I'm doing this is for an outlet to do this. If somebody watches this, awesome. If it is not many viewers of this, that's fine too. My personal opinion of this might be different than somebody else's, but I don't like pirated software. But I also come from the time from before time where you had shareware. You had not everything can be shareware. You put something out, and if you get paid for it, you get paid for it. If you don't, it's whatever. Or they have partially disabled software or whatever. But the days of shareware, obviously are no more. Yeah. So my personal opinion is, I can install Mac OS on this computer because I can, and it's my computer. And there's another question, you know, because I see a lot of people, they, you know, I see a lot of videos about people installing the Mac OS and using Hackintoshes to then edit video and put out content, and that's their prerogative, that's theirs. But you know, I'm saying for me personally, which is probably no different, I don't know, you know, if using your Hackintosh to make money, maybe you just lump them in with the same category, the same kind of people. That's okay. If you have opinion of that, then that's fine. But I'm just saying the way I see it is, you know, I made this and I want to run it. Maybe I'm over explaining it or trying to justify it, and I'm a little, you know, I'm a little surprised it did actually work. But I'm going to get into some of the why. Well, first of all, the reason why I think I have to switch over to the Mac, or maybe it will run. One of the reasons why I missed the Macintosh is this. Being able to do this. This is just something when I built it, I put together, and yeah, there are all sorts of programs out there. But I got one for free that does this. I did this in a half an hour. I went to found the files and the loops and the whatevers, and I just threw something together. And it works. This is what I missed. And I am not able to right now. Is this working? Another one of those post-production comments. Now I just got done playing in GarageBand, whatever song, you know, a little song thing, and I don't touch on, further down the line here, I don't really touch on, and you see a bit of it. If you see the bottom of the screen, you see a built-in effects rack looking thing there. There are a ton of built-in effects in GarageBand that are really, they're really good, and you can get other effects. They make effects, third party, they make effects for it, but the built-in effects are really good. This is coming from, I own, like I said earlier, I own Pro Tools. I bought it a few years ago, Pro Tools 11, and older versions, and I use the built-in effects there. They're very good, and I don't tend to buy effects or plugins after that. I tend to look for free plugins because there are very good free plugins that are available out there that you can get. In Pro Tools, I have some great plugins, some saturation on this stuff, and GarageBand has a lot of this built in, and that's what I just wanted to make a point about as I go on speaking about that. I don't really talk about the effects part of it, but you can see in this video of the GarageBand screen, the bottom there's a rack effect. Like I said, that's just built into it. They seem to include everything into GarageBand that you're going to need because you're in a GarageBand. So yeah, there's other software out there, but does it do this? Does it do that? What GarageBand knew, Apple knew what it was doing when it created GarageBand. And there's a lot of software that is kind of like it, and it is debatable whether something's better or not. There's software out there that people use that they like, absolutely, and that's what they should do. But I'm just saying, from my observer point of view here, from what I've seen, that's why I gravitated toward it. So there's my comment about my other comment about GarageBand in my post-production, you know, whatever. Okay, all right. So I am not able to right now buy a $6,000 computer to be able to do that, to have this power. You don't need this much power to run GarageBand, you know, but what you're going to need, at least for it to run well and do all the stuff that you want to do for that and iMovie and anything else, you're going to need something that's a little bit more powerful. But also, I mean, that's, yeah, something built in, or you can get for free. You can download from the App Store or whatever for free, is GarageBand. It's just awesome. And I had when I first started messing with GarageBand in 2005, when it was fairly new, I had another song. Maybe I can find it and interject that in here somewhere. And that's one thing I worked on for a couple of days, and it was simple too. But I mean, it had all of the little loops there and stuff like that. All right, so that's GarageBand. The reason why, and I'm going to switch to on my PC, and I'll discuss that, my audio recording software, and I'll talk about that. But before I do that, I just want to explain the reason why people like Macintoshes is the way Apple and the Macintoshes handle audio. This was a recording project I did 8 years ago, and I'll play some of it in the background, and just so it doesn't get flagged for anything. It was never released, you know, for sale or anything like that. This recording wasn't. I can give more information about this project if somebody wanted to know, left a question or something like that. But it's just, yeah, it's something that I pull and dabble with, you know, because it's a great example. Here, let me just stop that. It's a great example of, you know, it's a good reason to practice, and I'll pull it out and I'll dust it off every now and then when I get into the recording side of stuff. It was nowhere near finished as far as, you know, being ready for any sort of release or anything like that. It was quite far along. There was some finishing touches that needed to happen, and I wanted to like reroute some of these tracks, and that's what I wanted to show in my Pro Tools project here. Also, if this works, I have to switch to on this here. I recorded this live. It was a couple of different things. I recorded this on an all-in-one recorder. It was a Mackie 24-channel recorder, and I moved it all to when I moved to Pro Tools, moved the project to Pro Tools. I used one of those Avid 003 rack as an interface, because back then with Pro Tools 8 you had to run it with one of their interfaces. Well, this is Pro Tools 11, and you don't have to, and I don't have it anymore. If I've discussed about moving everything we moved from the United States to Germany, so a lot of stuff went clean start. So I'm running this with the built-in sound, the built-in audio chip of this motherboard, and so as a result, you have to use ASIO for all when you are using this type of thing. When you're using any sort of built-in motherboard sound. So when you go, let me see if is it set up the hardware? Yeah. ASI ASIO for all. Which, I mean, thank God they come up with this, because this wasn't built into Windows. This is free. This is third party. This is a band-aid for anybody wanting to use use their hardware with a piece of software. So you have to, you got to launch the setup app, and which only works in when you're in the application. Anyways, the details about this are not important right now, but in order to get the built-in sound to work in Pro Tools with this, now we just want to quit there. So yeah, so that's just to show some information about that. That was just to show some information about using Pro Tools in Windows, which it works fine for what I needed that for. I'm waiting to get whatever new interface I'm going to use. I'm having a little trouble deciding. This is kind of an offshoot. It's kind of a random thing, tangent, but I'm having trouble deciding what I want to use for a new, because I had, like I said, I had the Avid 003 rack and the 002 interfaces and that stuff, blah blah blah. And I have had Mackie, and I had some Motu Mark of the Unicorn stuff, and which is really great. When I was doing I had plans on doing more mobile recording. So like I said, if you've seen my other videos about being a Jakes, when we do something, we just do it all. Mobile recording. All I want to have this awesome setup, and which I did, and I still am interested in it. But then it was like, I want to build tube guitar amplifiers. Then I want to play in a band. You know what I mean? So when you do something, why not do it all the way? Anyways, so the audio devices on a Mac are handled much better than on a Windows PC. Now, this is obviously that Mac versus Windows thing there, but for audio, it's just amazing how simple it is on a Mac and how much it works, how much better it works. The reason is that this is the Audio MIDI setup window, and any device that you have, this is the built-in. I'm using the built-in sound off of this the Realtek chip off this motherboard. I'm using that, and Apple just sees it as whatever, the line inputs and line outputs and stuff like that. But if you plug in and get another device, either it has drivers, or it uses, or if Mac OS sees it as another default device, you just choose what it is. In other words, you just choose what you want to use in your application. Like I said, if you have specific drivers for it, you use those or whatever, but you can use this device in any audio application that you have on here. Apple just handles it. Now and I'll probably show it to you again, but one of the things I did get for doing the streaming was just a simple little USB mixer. It just, you plug a microphone into it, and it goes USB out to your computer. So it's a USB audio device, and you don't really need drivers for it, because on the Windows side, and maybe hopefully I showed you when I showed you the Windows computer with the Windows apps that I have for that. This, it loads up standard USB audio device, but on this one you need an ASIO driver. It doesn't supply it. Behringer and a lot of devices, not just Behringer, but a lot of devices that are the simple USB audio devices, you're required to go find ASIO for all the application / drivers. You use that. It's a standard, but you have to find it. The website, like Behringer has on their website, you can download ASIO for all from their website. It's a little bit older, the driver, but it works. But that's what you have to use. In other words, some applications in Windows use the Windows driver, the built-in driver, but no, some applications use an ASIO. If you don't know audio, if I'm boring you to death when describing that, but it's different things. More expensive devices usually have a full ASIO driver. Some of the cheaper ones use ASI. You need to use ASIO for all. The reason there is an ASIO for all is because somebody came up with this driver standard or whatever because there wasn't one. In other words, Windows didn't come up with it. So somebody came up with that to be able to use, because some software doesn't use the standard Windows Microsoft driver because it's not as good. Matter of fact, getting it to work in the Pro Tools audio software that I had, it didn't work at first or whatever, and this one is limited. But I just got this for, like I said, for purposes of doing YouTube videos and stuff like that. And it's a cheap Behringer thing. It didn't cost very much. It does what it is supposed to do. I'm not liking the fact that the driver model they use and a lot of the other ones use, this little mixer actually is not bad. It has a built-in compressor. Now Behringer gets a lot of flack because whatever their practices and stealing. At this point, everybody kind of has the same thing. The price point, they all have the same. They all have the same kind of cheap stuff all the way to the very expensive stuff. So that argument really doesn't fly much anymore about Behringer and their business practices. They all do that now. And if you don't know what that history of that, so you can look it up. But Behringer got a lot of crap, and it has been getting a lot of crap lately because, well, they used to mostly make crap. But this actually is very good. I chose this for my $40, $50 mixer over other things because it has things that other things didn't, and it works. And so anyways, so that's talking about that. But yeah, so it takes, to be able to run that Pro Tools, in Windows, to be able to run some software, you need to find a driver somewhere that is more universal. If it doesn't include one itself or whatever, because Microsoft Windows doesn't have a good enough one that's built in. So that's as far as that goes, and it's built in to the Mac operating system, that if you plug in a device that's recognized, it handles the audio a certain way. So I'm using the built-in audio on this Macintosh, just for software. And on a Windows side of it, you got to jump through more hoops. So there you have it. I made a Hackintosh. And I wanted to talk a little bit about it. This being my latest video, I kind of veered off. I was doing the game discussion before, but I had gotten into this a little bit more the past few weeks. So, and it worked more or less on this computer. Like I said, I had been trying it every now and then on the other thing because I wanted to run my audio programs on the Mac OS. the audio programs I've had for years that ran better on Mac OS. If you have a comment or two, leave a comment, or like it or not like it, or whatever you want to do. Like I said, I'm not in this. This is for an outlet. It started mostly because of the pandemic, the global pandemic, where we all had to stay home, and I just wanted to see. I'm just seeing where this is going, and this was my latest exploit, just to see if it would work. And it pretty much has worked, as far as this goes. This Hackintosh, this guy's a cheesy name too. This Hackintosh actually it has not crashed on me once. And I know, knock on table, knock on head, just saying that it probably will, but it has not crashed on me. I expected it to crash, because it was going to. In my installation process of this this whole thing here, I ended up, it's a dual boot situation. I have Windows 10, as you can see in the icon there. I have Windows 10 on this computer. Well, that's after installing Windows 10. In the process of doing other kinds of Hackintosh installs, I ended up hosing my Windows 10 installation, which I had all my stuff on. So that Windows 10 you see there, icon for the hard drive, is a fresh install. Then that's what happens sometimes. And it's that, oh, okay. It's that thing where, and it only was restarting the computer to boot it and see if would boot into Mac, and it booted it into Windows a couple of times. That didn't finish or whatever, or it saw the partition that it didn't like, and so it reset itself. And that's when the Windows repair screen comes up, and it's going to repair your computer, which in other words, it's toast. So of a bad boot a couple of times, your Windows is not usable. That's just another reason. That's not a reason to do this, but that's another reason to piss me off, and another reason to whatever. So I have to go and reinstall all the stuff that I had on the Windows 10 install for this. But you live and learn. This video I started and stopped just to make sure I had all the information I wanted to put, and like I said, this isn't a tutorial, and I told you about the guys that, the guys and girls that I, who I followed for tutorials or to learn about this. Specifically on this one is the OpenCore 5.9 version of how you boot in the bootloader and the install files and all of this stuff, which I won't even begin to get into. But OpenCore is what I use for this. There's Clover. I think I may actually work on Clover more for the Intel one. But yeah, so I used OpenCore. I followed the tutorial for that one, and yes, because it was a matter of it had all the specific KEXT, KEXTS, aka drivers to make it work under Mac OS and stuff like that. So it had, and that was a matter of, like I said before, just following exactly to what the tutorial was that I used, and also using the tutorials. Some of the tutorials I couldn't use me specifically because they're showing a tutorial on making a Hackintosh work, and so there's okay, we're going to open up the Mac Finder, and on your Mac, it's like, I'm trying to make a Mac. I don't have a Mac. So you have to look for the Windows installation, which there are a bit less of for my specific whatever. So I needed to start out with a Windows computer to have all those little utilities and apps work, and a lot more. If you're watching this for some information about, what to expect, if I can give you a little bit of information, hopefully I can. It's there's a lot more command line, command DOS Windows usage of, which is ironic. And even on the Mac side, open up a terminal window, whatever, DOS box. You can call it terminal, but it's DOS. That's what DOS. That's what DOS is. Always been, is typing on a command line. There's a lot more of that. You can't get away from that, which is that's the irony to me. Is you still need a command line DOS box to do all this stuff, and which is good because when it comes to formatting a disk and you need to set it the kind of format, the kind of partition it is on a USB drive, there's all of that stuff, which is, it's exact. To me, that's what I get from this. If you're doing it in a DOS box, it's exact. None of these menus where you're going. I mean, there are things that I absolutely cannot stand about the Mac OS. It's not all unicorns and flowers. The disk utility has gotten basically unusable, in my opinion. Is to partition and erase things, and it doesn't give you the information that it used to have as far as back as the Yosemite, but now it's tons worse. And if you're thinking, no, it's this blah blah this, it's worse than what it used to be. Maybe there are utilities that I don't know of that you can get, but what was built into Mac, and I think that they don't want you to do some stuff, is less than stuff. That's the some of the stuff that Apple, they don't want you to do. They want you to do less stuff on your own. They just want you to start up your Mac and do your applications and enjoy them, how good it is. It is good, but there are some things that it's still not perfect. They tend to ignore things, that the Windows side of things does, which is, it's not any better or anything like that. I'm just saying. So thank you for watching this video. This my little discussion of making my Hackintosh, and where I went with that, I went to audio recording and and some video stuff, how I use it, my explanation of it. If it sounds like it's my justification of why I did a Hackintosh, so be it. I like it. I still have a lot of bugs to work out, and I still have to actually have some sort of boot menu, but if I want to keep it on, I still haven't decided if I definitely want to keep it on this computer. I wanted to see if it would work. I do plan on talking, maybe I'll make another video about, because it's not just the audio stuff or whatever, but I want to see if like I said, I have DaVinci Resolve, and I have Pro Tools. If I install Pro Tools on this Hackintosh computer, and how OBS does. I do know OBS, the NDI plugin that sends video over network to another OBS, the OBS receiver or whatever it is. So I'm gonna see if that works, and maybe I'll make another video of that stuff on my 3D stuff. I don't do too much with 3D programs. I haven't in a few years, but maybe we'll talk about that. So until you see another video, thank you again for watching this one. Bye.